So much for enjoying the very first part of course, The Royal and the Silence, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. It's fascinating, as I say, to find the inside stories of exactly how things evolved and happened. You know, I remember meeting one of the golden age ladies of the silent era. Ooh, this would be in the 90s now, and she told me so many fun stories about what it was like working in that particular time. You've got to remember, they invented everything from Photoplay magazine to the premiere to, you know, the Star's arrival. And she told me this great story about each and every week, you know, at the Hollywood station, a brand new face would arrive, or a, you know, leading man hunk, right? Picked out from the provinces, promised worldwide stardom, and of course the ubiquitous £1,000,000 check. But as she found out herself, the check was as fake as the car that picked them up. And once they got into the studio did a test and decided whether they could become a leading lady or not. Remember, they didn't need to speak at this point, they simply needed to look good and transpose that look through the cinema screen. As she said, Hollywood was a dirty place even then, but if you were willing to sell your soul, you could certainly make a lot of money. And she named quite a lot of names that did. Now, as many people know, one of the biggest films sort of depicting Hollywood in its decline or its madness was none other than the 1950 epic that is Sunset Boulevard, starring William Holden and the brilliant Gloria Swanson. Gloria came with a ready-made package, as I pointed out, already part of the Kennedy clan, so she knew exactly the sort of people that mattered, the movers and shakers, right? But Billy Wilder and his team were still looking for backers, and this is where Lord Louis Mountbatten came in. Now, the thing with royals is they'll shuffle their wallet a lot and move around, but they don't actually ever really prise open the purse. You get the picture. It's seen as rather a dirty word to actually ask them to pay for anything. Right. Now, where it got interesting was this, you see, Mary Pickford, as I told you, was very keen to make a return to the movies. And Billy Wilder liked the idea alongside other ubiquitous names like Mae West, Mae Murray, people like that, you know, Clara Bow, people that were knocking around that literally could, of course, made a big difference on the screen, people remembering them. You've got to remember, if you watch them in the 1919s, 1920s, now you're going to be of an elderly age who might want to go and see your former idol of the silver screen as they look today. Gloria Swanson, though, still looked terrific, and still did even in the latter part of her years. Mary Pickford was a little bit concerned because, of course, she was dubbed America's sweetheart and, you know, forever the lovely young girl. But of course, time catches up with everybody. So they decided that they needed to audition Mary, right? And this was fine, apparently, but she didn't realise she'd have to come to Paramount Studios to audition. Mary didn't do auditions, let's not be, you know, honest about this. She'd already made gazillions for the studio. She was America's sweetheart, alongside her husband, Douglas Fairbanks Sr. He and her had Pickfair, the very first ubiquitous Hollywood mansion home. So you see how this works. But she thought about it and then politely declined. And she mentioned this to her friend Louis. And Louis said, "This is ridiculous. A woman of your stature shouldn't have to..." No, it's preposterous. They should be thrilled to get you. Somehow, whether Louis inadvertently let this out or over a dinner conversation, and this is how Gloria heard about that. So she sent note that she'd be willing to do the audition on the instruction of a friend, a good film director called George Cukor, who I met very briefly as well. Marvellous man at the Savoy. Lots of stories, obviously. Now, interesting here is because, as I said, Mary was still holding out on that. She had no idea that Gloria had pulled the fast track, not only saying that she would go down to Paramount and personally fund her own test if that was necessary, right? But she could guarantee real royalty in some of the background scenes. Billy Wilder was impressed. The test went forward. Behind the scenes, Mary Pickford had decided, well, perhaps she could at least go down for the meeting and it didn't have to be. And as you know, as Billy told me, I told you I met him outside the National Theatre and we talked for hours just on the table. He said it was like a scene literally from Sunset Boulevard. She decided to arrive. At this point, though, she still didn't really want to go on camera, only to face the camera if she got the part. Well, they decided then, naturally, as we now all know, to go alongside Gloria Swanson because she tested very well with William Holden. This got back to Mary Pickford. And Mary Pickford, inadvertently in some kind of fuddle and not exactly in full command of her faculties at this point, basically decided that it was Louis's advice that had lost her the part. Somehow, Gloria Swanson had, beaten her to it. It gets worse. Gloria, in all of her niceties, decided to invite Mary to the world premiere in Hollywood, right, as only you can. And then, even worse than that, she decided that she was going to try and mount her own Broadway production, of which she did, making the songs, all of that sort of stuff, but it never got to the point that the Andrew Lloyd Webber is now, you know, the one that we all know. But she felt, and she said this to the press, that she could possibly find a small part for a one-time rival, now dearest friend, Mary Pickford. So you see, in Hollywood, fights never really stop, even in the latter part of the twilight years. But one thing's for sure, the strong relationship between Louis and Mary Pickford sadly drifted off. And this was all because, according to that source, Mary felt that Louis had ill-advised her. Of course, she kept him on because he was a useful commodity. After all, he was very close to the British monarchy, and they always lived in hope of that next invite, right? But either way, Louis inadvertently stopped the return of a famous silent movie star back to the big screen. And so Mary remained still ready for her close-up. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.